Okay, here we are in OneNote on our class notes page. And I've called this page part 1 because we might have two parts to this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to review for the midterm exam. So the first thing we're going to discuss is solving, solving and simplifying fractions. So you'll want to review that section in your preliminary exams and possibly look to your book for some sample problems. But here is an example of what I might ask. 1/4 times 2/3 plus 2 and 1/2. And actually, real quick here, I want to start my timer because I don't want to go over 15 minutes. Okay. Now, one thing we want to make sure that we are paying attention to is order of operations. I don't need that parentheses there. Actually, want to put an equal sign here. So, as you know, we'll want to do multiplication first in this situation, so we can kind of consider this as if it's in parentheses. And the way we're going to handle that now is when we do multiplication, we take the numerators, we multiply them together, we take the denominators and multiply them together. So we have 2/12. So make sure you can do multiplication, addition, subtraction, and division of fractions. I'm going to add that to 2 and 1/2, which is the same thing as adding it to 2 plus 1/2 equals. Okay, now to add these together, I need a common denominator down here. So let's stick with 12 as our common denominator. So I want to turn 2 into something over 12. Well, 24/12 is 2. If you take 24, you divide it by 12, you get 2. So that'll work there. And then I have 1/2. And let's go through the process here, what I actually can do to convert this. So I want to convert this into the denominator. I want to convert into 12. So I have a common denominator. So I'm going to multiply it by 6. But I can't just multiply the denominator by 6 and not do anything else to my equation. I won't have a balanced equation. It won't be the same equation anymore. So what I'll have to do is, really what I want to do is multiply 1/2 by 1. And in order to do that, I'm multiplying 1/2 by 6/6. 6/6 is 1. The reason I chose 6 was because I wanted the denominator to turn into 12. So we have 2/12 now plus 24/12 plus 6/12. So now I just add the numerators and I end up with 32/12. So I want you to reduce the fraction. And in order to do that, there's a number of ways you can approach that problem. But again, what I'm going to do to reduce this fraction is I'm going to multiply it by 1. And the way I multiply it by 1 is I want to look here. I can see that I can divide this by 4 and I can divide this by 4. So I'm going to take this as 1/4 over 1/4, and then I'm going to take a peek at it and see if I've reduced it all the way. So 32/4, 32 divided by 4 is 8. Well, let me actually write it out, what I'm saying here. So what we're talking about is, and I'll do it in green, I think. What I'm doing is, now I'm performing this multiplication because this is like 32/1 times 1/4, which is the same thing as 32/4. And then I'm dividing this by 12/4. So 32 divided by 4, remember from our basic multiplication tables, 32 divided by 4 is 8, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. And there we go, simplified enough. Okay, so that's one type of thing that I'd like you to be able to do. Can we, will this go down? No. Page down a little bit here. Okay, another topic we talked about was dealing with fractions. Again, we're going to we'll change fractions back and forth into decimals. Go from a decimal to a fraction or from a fraction to a decimal. So let's look at an example there. I'll put 2 decimals here. And vice versa. So 3 and 2/5 equals what? Well, kind of did it up above, but not quite as big as this number. So this is like saying 3 plus 2/5. So the 3 I already have set up. I mean, that's just like 3.0 something plus 2/5. So there's a number of approaches you can use here. You could take the 2 and you could divide it by 5, maybe with a calculator. Or if you want to do this longhand, you can look at this and let's see, we can make the clever, we can notice in a clever way that to turn the denominator into tenths, we multiply by 2. And that means we have to multiply the numerator by 2, so we're multiplying our whole fraction by 1 and not changing the fraction at all. So again, now we're down to 30 plus 4 tenths. And 4 tenths, we know, is the same as 0.4 because this is the tenths column. So this equals 30.4. That's our answer. Okay, so play around with the fractions. Make sure you can handle those fractions in those problems. Next thing we'll move on to is we did some basic algebra. Solve for missing variables. So I might have an equation that I want you to solve for the missing variable. So 2r plus 6 equals 16. So I'll expect you to solve for r here. That's the variable missing. So one way we can do that is we can subtract 6 off of both sides, and that means these will cancel. And I'm left over here with, let's thicken this green one up. Might be too thick. I'm left over here with 10. And on this side I have 2r. So now I can divide by 2. If I divide this side by 2, I have to divide this side by 2. And 10 over 2 equals 5. 2 over 2 equals 1r equals r. So r equals 5. Now, when you're doing a quiz or a test, you should indicate your answers. I put double lines over here. Another thing you can do is put a box. You're going to want to be as neat as possible. What I'm probably going to do for the testing, when we take the test, is I'm going to have you write out the test yourself from a copy that I'm going to publish online, and you can either print it out or write it out, and then I'm going to have you take pictures of it, and we'll have to talk about how we want to do that. Okay, following along with these ideas of fractions and algebra, solving algebra problems, we talked about proportions. Okay, so I might ask you a question. 6 over 4 to 12 over 4. And I might say, is this a proportion? Might ask you that question. How can we figure it out? Well, if this is a proportion, we should be able to bring the 4 over here and bring this 4 over here. So we should be able to bring 4 times 6, and it should be equal to 12 times 4. And in this case, you see, we have 24 over here equal to 48. So the answer would be, no, that's not a proportion. Another style of problem I might have, I might give you similar triangles, or I might give you a relationship set up where you had 6 over x. Well, 6 over 4 is not the correct denominator number. Oops, I don't want that as an equal sign, even though that's kind of how we're going to handle it. I want this as a proportion. This is a colon. 6 over x to 12 over 4. So to find out what x should be here, we would just multiply the 4 times the 6, and we're going to get 24, and then set that equal to the other side, 12 times x. So now at this point, it's just algebra here. So I divide this by 12, divide this by 12. So therefore, x must be equal to 2 here. So I might have you solve something like that too. So that's our proportions. How are we doing on time? We got lots of time. Okay. The final thing I think I want to talk about in this video is percentages. We had, see if I can scroll down here. We'd talk about percentages. So I might have a number 5 and 1/4%. I might want you to convert to decimal. So how do we do that? Well, this is like 5 plus 1/4%. So now this is using some of the tools we were practicing above. 5 1/4% is 5.25%. And actually, that's the answer. 1/4 is equal to 0.25. We converted 1/4 into 0.25. So that converts this into, that's actually not the answer. That's converting this into a percentage. Now I've got to convert this percentage into a decimal. And I do that. So 5.25%. If I'm going to convert it into a decimal, I do that by multiplying it by 100 or moving this decimal place twice. So this will then be the same as 0.0525.